Across the United States, around 15 states are slowly unraveling, and most people don't even realize they're standing on the edge of a financial cliff. It's not a natural disaster or a foreign conflict that's putting them at risk. It's the fact that they're living in homes where the housing market has quietly turned against them, while they still believe everything is stable. You can make every mortgage payment on time, keep your place in great shape, and still wake up one morning to discover your home has dropped $100,000 in value, with hardly anyone willing to take it off your hands. For a lot of homeowners over 50, there used to be this comforting belief that if you simply held onto your house long enough, you'd come out ahead. Now, many of them are scrambling as property taxes, insurance premiums, and rising interest rates tighten the pressure month after month. And the most frustrating part? Almost nobody saw it coming, and even fewer people bothered to warn them. Think of this video as the last alert before things get worse. If you live in, or are considering moving to, any of these 15 states, skipping the next few minutes could end up draining your life savings before you even know what happened. First, Florida. Right now, Florida sits at the very center of the 2025 housing meltdown. No other state is watching its market unravel as quickly, and it's become the clearest example of a crisis creeping across the nation. Data from ATTOM for October 2025 shows that Florida now holds the highest foreclosure rate in the country. Roughly 1 out of every 129 homes has already gone into foreclosure, which is more than a 20% jump from the same time last year. Even cities that were red hot just a short time ago, places like Cape Coral, Naples, and Tampa, have seen property values slide anywhere from 6% to 9% in the first 9 months alone. But falling prices aren't even the main problem. The real pain is the cost of simply owning a home. Insurance premiums have doubled within just 2 years because of repeated natural disasters and rising climate risks. A house worth $350,000 can easily rack up as much as $9,000 a year in insurance alone, and that doesn't even include property taxes, which keep climbing as homes get reassessed. Florida's renter population is also surging. Nearly 34% of residents now rent, which is putting extraordinary pressure on the rental market. Meanwhile, the short-term rental boom is fading fast. Airbnb hosts across the state are pulling out because the numbers no longer add up. Profits can't keep up with skyrocketing expenses. Cities that depend on tourism, such as Orlando and Miami, are being flooded with thousands of Airbnb properties hitting the market for sale, or being converted into long-term rentals at far lower rates. Another major shift is beginning as well. Retirees and older homeowners are packing up and leaving. Throughout 2025, more and more longtime residents have started moving to states like Tennessee, North Carolina, or even various parts of the Midwest, where living expenses are lower and insurance isn't such a financial threat. One viewer summed it up perfectly when they shared their experience. "I've lived in Lee County for 15 years. This year alone, my insurance jumped 140%, and my property taxes spiked because of a reassessment. My neighbor, who's a retired teacher, had to sell her house because she couldn't keep up with the escrow." Florida used to be the dream destination for retirees, a sunny, affordable place to settle down. But today, it's slowly turning into a state where many people over 50 are being pushed out just to survive financially. So, what's your take? Does Florida still seem like a realistic, long-term haven for retirees? Or is that dream starting to fade? Second, South Carolina. A state that once represented the perfect retirement escape is now turning into an unexpected financial strain. As of October 2025, South Carolina pushed past even California to claim the nation's second highest foreclosure rate, trailing only behind Florida. ATTOM's latest data shows that roughly 1 out of every 182 homes in the state is now in foreclosure. This leads to a serious question. How did a place long viewed as an ideal retirement haven end up spiraling into instability? A major piece of the puzzle goes back to the massive buying frenzy between 2020 and 2022. Thousands of people from the Northeast and Midwest rushed into South Carolina seeking relief from high taxes and hoping to lock in a peaceful place to retire. But once interest rates shot past 7%, many of those buyers, especially those who paid top dollar during the peak, started struggling to keep up with their payments, add in higher maintenance expenses, and surging insurance premiums after recent storms. And it's clear the market has shifted into a full correction phase. Counties such as Charleston, Lexington, and Richland have been hit especially hard. Over just 9 months, home prices there have fallen an average of 4 to 6%. At the same time, repair costs have jumped by as much as 18% because construction labor remains in short supply. Another critical factor is South Carolina's demographic makeup. Nearly 19% of its residents are over the age of 65, yet the median household income sits at only about $56,000 a year, nowhere near enough to absorb rising expenses while property values slip. One older homeowner summed up the situation in a comment, "We moved to Columbia, hoping to spend our later years here, but our insurance nearly doubled this year, and utilities keep climbing. I'm starting to question whether we made the right move." Experts warn that if foreclosures and forced sales continue at this pace for another 6 months, the damage won't just be financial. The state could lose the confidence of an entire generation of retirees. Once a place loses its reputation for affordability and stability, very few people are willing to take a second chance. South Carolina, which used to shine as one of the top retirement destinations, is gradually losing that edge to mounting costs, shrinking liquidity, and a housing market under strain. For many families in their middle years, the idea of settling here may no longer be the safe bet it once seemed. Are you thinking about moving out of South Carolina, or do you believe the situation will level out? Feel free to share your thoughts. Third, Nevada. When the glow of Las Vegas starts to dim, investors slip out the back door. Nevada, especially hotspots like Vegas and Reno, used to be a goldmine for short-term rental investors, but that era is fading fast. Redfin and AirDNA data from Q3 2025 reveal that more than 17% of Airbnb property owners in Las Vegas have put their homes on the market in the past year, largely because the numbers no longer make sense. Rising interest rates, costly upkeep, and new taxes have squeezed profits to the point where many hosts simply can't stay afloat. During the 2020-2022 surge, home prices in Las Vegas skyrocketed by more than 45%. Now that wave has reversed. In just 9 months, average prices have dropped about 7.2%, and foreclosures have jumped 18% compared with last year. Clark County alone is seeing roughly 1 foreclosure filing for every 2,400 homes. And that figure keeps inching upward, partly because of adjustable-rate mortgages taken out during the Trump administration and the COVID era. What makes Nevada different from places like Florida or South Carolina is the type of homeowner affected. Rather than retirees relocating permanently, Nevada drew in a huge wave of middle-aged investors who were banking on short-term rental income. But today, that income has fallen by 30 to 40%. And newer rules involving business registration and tourism-related taxes have made the Airbnb model far less sustainable. One viewer described it bluntly, "I own 2 condos in Vegas, both bought in 2021. Prices have fallen, bookings are down, and maintenance keeps getting more expensive. I've listed them for sale, but no one's even asking. If I could rewind to 2020, I'd never make the same investment." And the challenge goes beyond real estate. Nevada's entire economy leans heavily on tourism, entertainment, and service industries, all of which are feeling the impact of weaker consumer spending. When Vegas loses its appeal, money flows out, and properties once viewed as profitable assets quickly turn into financial liabilities. Nevada, for all its promise, is now exposing the riskier side of speculation and the hidden costs behind those neon lights. Have you ever thought about buying an Airbnb in Las Vegas? How do you feel about that idea now? Fourth, Illinois. A place without hurricanes, without wildfires, without a short-term rental bust. Yet Illinois is still sinking into a quiet, unnerving housing crisis. What's breaking the market here isn't dramatic or sudden. It's the slow grind of high taxes, population loss, and long-standing budget problems. None of it makes headlines, but all of it chips away at the finances of the people who remain. By 2025, Illinois once again sits near the top of the list for outbound migration, according to U.S. Census data. Chicago alone saw almost 40,000 residents leave within a single year, many of them retirees and middle-income families. And when they moved away, they didn't just abandon their homes. They left behind the state's tax burden, which is now being carried by fewer and fewer people. For those who stay, the cost is staggering. Illinois has the highest property taxes in the entire country, an average of 2.27% of a home's value annually, based on WalletHub's 2025 report. That means a house valued at $300,000 can cost over $6,800 per year in property taxes alone. And that doesn't include insurance or the higher utility bills that followed the extreme freeze earlier this year. A friend once joked, "In Illinois, buying a house is like marrying someone gorgeous, but every month you're expected to bring gifts to the entire city council." It sounds funny, but honestly, it's not far from the truth. If you live here, you're essentially covering the costs for the people who already packed up and left. Chicago and its suburbs are also struggling with abandoned properties and rising crime rates, which has many longtime residents in their 40s and 50s asking themselves, "Am I staying in a place that's slowly moving backward?" A 55-year-old driver from Joliet shared his situation. "I bought my home in the suburbs 20 years ago. Now nobody wants it. I'm paying almost $7,000 a year just in taxes, not counting repairs. I'm still here, but it feels like I'm trapped." Illinois doesn't crash all at once. It drains you slowly, bit by bit, year after year, household by household. Stay aware, stay prepared, and make sure your future doesn't catch you off guard. Fifth, Delaware. A state that rarely makes headlines is suddenly sending shockwaves through anyone watching the housing market. Delaware is small, quiet, and usually associated with stability and business-friendly laws. Yet, it has unexpectedly become one of the states with the highest foreclosure rates in the country. Few people imagined that a place once viewed as calm and dependable would show signs of being among the earliest to crack. And interestingly, the problem here isn't physical risk, it's psychological. During the era of ultra-low interest rates, a wave of people moved to Delaware for its slower pace, lighter taxes, and relatively affordable homes. But now the reality looks very different. Many households that once bought with optimism are holding on out of fear, weighed down by debt and mounting financial strain. Home values have essentially stopped growing. Sales activity has dropped sharply. Meanwhile, everything connected to owning a home, taxes, insurance, repairs, utilities, has jumped significantly. In a compact market like Delaware, it doesn't take tens of thousands of people to trigger instability. Just a few thousand homeowners struggling at the same time is enough to rattle the entire system. This pressure is pushing many older adults and moderate-income residents to give up on the future they once imagined here. One middle-aged viewer put it plainly, "I thought this would be my forever home. But now every time I look at my bank account, I'm wondering if I can even afford to keep it another month." Delaware doesn't have the dramatic disasters or short-term rental chaos you see in other states. Instead, it's a textbook example of a slow, silent breakdown, the kind that happens when the cost of living rises far faster than people's hope or income. Do you currently live in Delaware, or have you ever thought about moving there? What was the biggest surprise or challenge you didn't expect when owning a home here? Your experience could help someone prepare before it's too late. Sixth, California. The iconic vision of California, golden coastlines, endless sunshine, and the promise of opportunity, is turning into something far more stressful for many homeowners in 2025. What was once the ultimate dream of coastal living has, for a growing number of people, become an overwhelming financial burden. Right now, the state's median home price hovers around $761,000, down roughly 2.1% from the previous year. But that small dip doesn't mean relief. In fact, the danger hasn't passed at all. It's simply shifted. The people who bought at the peak are still staring down a massive wall of debt that isn't going away. The cost of actually owning a home, once you factor in interest, taxes, and insurance, has soared to more than double what the typical household earns. For a moderately sized home, the combined monthly payment for mortgage, taxes, and insurance easily exceeds $5,500. That's a level many families, especially those nearing retirement or already living on fixed incomes, simply cannot sustain for years on end. Because prices surged so high in previous years, The buyer pool has thinned dramatically. Once interest rates climbed, thousands of would-be buyers no longer qualified for loans at all. Demand shrank, listings stayed active much longer, and price reductions became the norm. Recent reports also show a spike in homes being delisted, owners attempting to sell, but ultimately giving up because the market wouldn't cooperate. And then there's nature. Wildfires, mudslides, and repeated climate-driven disasters, especially in Southern California and coastal areas, are driving insurance premiums higher and higher. Many homeowners now face a painful question. Do we keep trying to hold on, or do we walk away and lose everything we built? One middle-aged couple from Southern California described their situation this way. "We thought we were set for life, but now every month feels like solving a math equation. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs. Our income isn't climbing, but the expenses keep doubling." They're considering relocating somewhere quieter, cheaper, and more stable. California has long been seen as the land of second chances and big dreams. But in 2025, it's also becoming a symbol of just how fragile those dreams can be when costs spiral out of control. If you own a home in California, or once wished you did, what would your move be? Would you hold on or start planning an exit? 7th, Texas. For years, Texas was marketed as the land of opportunity, a place where you could buy a spacious home, enjoy low taxes, and benefit from a booming economy. But in 2025, a lot of people are discovering that the promised land comes with a side of harsh reality. What once felt like an affordable fresh start is slowly becoming a financial weight many didn't see coming. Although home prices in several Texas regions have slipped a bit, the cost of owning a home is rising far faster. Higher interest rates, soaring property taxes, climbing insurance premiums, and expensive repairs after severe weather have turned homes that looked like amazing deals in 2021 into monthly money pits. For many middle-income families, their house now eats up more than half of their take-home pay. Even more concerning is what's happening to the market itself. Inventory keeps growing, sales activity is cooling, and the average days on market continue to stretch. When liquidity dries up, people who were planning to sell and cash out find themselves unable to move, literally and financially. Foreclosure filings are also ticking upward again, signaling that a number of households have reached their breaking point. Older adults who once imagined Texas as their retirement landing spot are now revisiting that dream and asking themselves a tough question. Is this still a place where I can comfortably build the rest of my life? And if you moved to Texas because it seemed simple, affordable, and easy, does it still feel that way today? Stick around for the upcoming sections. The states that follow may surprise you even more. 8th, Indiana. Indiana doesn't usually appear on any housing crisis radar, and that's precisely what makes the situation unfolding there so unsettling. There are no dramatic headlines, no loud warnings, yet thousands of families are feeling the pressure quietly closing in on them. The state's relatively low cost of living has always been its biggest selling point, but that same affordability encouraged many people to stretch themselves thin during the frenzied buying years. Plenty of households took on mortgages that were right at the edge of their budget, trusting that stable jobs and cheap living expenses would keep everything in balance. Then interest rates spiked, home prices flattened, and that balance vanished overnight. Across the suburbs and smaller counties, a growing wave of for sale signs has appeared. Some residents are moving because their jobs disappeared. Others simply can't keep pace with today's rising cost of living. And when too many homeowners rush to sell at the same time, the outcome is predictable. Prices slide even further. For people in their 50s and beyond, this phase of life is not one where financial mistakes can be easily undone. Buying at the wrong moment or holding onto a property that's draining your budget can reshape your entire retirement trajectory. Indiana serves as a quiet warning. Don't let calm markets lure you into a false sense of security. Sometimes the places that look the most stable are actually the most fragile underneath. Low home prices won't protect you anymore, not when everything else is climbing faster than your income. 9th, New Jersey. New Jersey has long held the reputation of being the perfect suburban extension of New York, close to the city, packed with amenities, and full of job opportunities. But in 2025, the state's housing market is exposing a different reality. growing financial strain, and an alarming dependence on debt just to stay afloat. In the past several months alone, foreclosure filings across New Jersey have jumped sharply, with some communities now ranking among the highest in the entire country. And this isn't limited to struggling neighborhoods. Even the safe suburbs that once drew families seeking stability are now being hit. Home prices have flattened, buyers have backed off, and yet none of the major costs of ownership have slowed down. Property taxes, insurance premiums, and maintenance expenses continue climbing without hesitation. For middle-aged residents and older adults, the combination of mortgage payments, insurance bills, and some of the highest property taxes in America can quickly become overwhelming. Those who bought during the peak price frenzy are in an even tougher spot. Their home values are slipping, and trying to sell their way out isn't much of an option. The market has softened, buyers are hesitant, and listings are sitting on the market longer and longer. A home that once represented comfort and stability has now turned into a polished package of debt, something that looks nice on the outside but feels exhausting to carry. Instead of being a place to enjoy life, for many homeowners, it's become a constant battle with rising expenses, endless paperwork, and financial uncertainty. If you ever viewed New Jersey as a rock-solid choice for retirement or long-term living, it may be time to reassess. This could be one of the very places silently draining your savings without you noticing until it's too late. 10th, Arizona. Arizona used to be the picture of an easy, sunny escape, warm weather, reasonable living costs, and a steady flow of newcomers from California looking for a fresh start. But in 2025, the quieter, more complicated side of that boom is beginning to surface. Home prices have slipped a bit, but that small decline isn't the real story. What's more telling is the huge jump in listings. The market has slowed to a crawl, with fewer buyers stepping in and many homeowners finding themselves stuck, unable to sell while still struggling to manage rising monthly expenses. Arizona may appear to have plenty of housing, yet it's missing the types of homes that people actually want and can afford. The supply on the market doesn't match the needs of middle-class families or retirees. So even with a large number of properties for sale, finding one that fits both a realistic budget and a livable lifestyle is surprisingly difficult. At the same time, rents are pushing upward, and the overall cost of daily life keeps increasing. Utilities, insurance, groceries, nearly every essential has crept higher. For anyone living on a fixed income or a retirement budget, the math gets harder to balance each month. This creates a tricky situation. If you don't time your decisions carefully, it's very easy to end up in a market that looks soft on the surface, but is tightening in ways that limit your options. And as long as interest rates remain elevated and incomes stay flat, Arizona can start to feel like a place where you're surrounded by sunshine, but experiencing very little comfort. Is Arizona still a wise choice for settling down? Possibly, but only if you analyze the numbers closely. If you simply assume it's cheap, simple, and straightforward, without digging deeper, you could be stepping directly into a hidden current you never saw coming. 11th, Colorado. Colorado used to represent the perfect blend of scenic mountains, crisp air, and a peaceful lifestyle. A dream especially attractive to people hoping to spend their later years close to nature. But in 2025, that comforting image is starting to fade. The median home price has dipped a little, yet the number of listings continues to climb quickly. Houses are staying on the market for months at a time, signaling an unhealthy combination of too much supply and not enough real demand. This imbalance is draining the market's liquidity, making it much harder for sellers to move their properties without compromising heavily on price. At the same time, homeowners, especially those living on retirement savings or fixed incomes, are being squeezed on every side. Property taxes, insurance premiums, and maintenance costs have not eased, even though home values have. This creates a two-sided strain. The value of the home is going down, while the cost of keeping it is going up. That leaves many residents in a painful position. Their home, once viewed as a long-term investment, is slipping in value. Yet they're still responsible for rising monthly expenses. And if they choose to sell, they face another dilemma. Accept a financial hit now, or hold out and risk losing even more of their hard-earned equity. Colorado, Once the picture of calm, natural living is slowly becoming a source of anxiety for many homeowners who no longer feel financially secure. Thinking about buying a peaceful mountain home? Make sure you're not unintentionally stepping into a new kind of financial stress disguised by beautiful scenery. 12th, Oregon. Oregon's lush forests, clean air, and gentle pace of life have long made it a magnet for people dreaming of a quieter, more nature-centered retirement. But beneath that peaceful exterior, a slow-moving housing problem is beginning to take shape. While home prices have dipped slightly, the more troubling trend is the continuous rise in housing inventory. Sellers are increasing, but buyers are growing more cautious, a combination that's creating a deeply unbalanced market. In many suburban areas, homes that were purchased with the intention of settling down long-term are now being put back on the market, not out of choice, but out of financial pressure. For older adults, the reality is especially difficult. Day-to-day living costs, property taxes, and ongoing maintenance have climbed far beyond what many expected. At a stage in life when income is often fixed and financial flexibility is limited, these rising expenses hit much harder than a simple price chart shows. Some longtime residents are even considering packing up and leaving Oregon altogether, realizing the financial weight now outweighs the peaceful lifestyle they once imagined. If Oregon is on your radar as a retirement destination, don't let the scenery or the market price tag be the only things guiding your decision. The real question is whether you can comfortably afford the long-term cost of living, because that's what truly determines whether this green paradise can remain your home in the years ahead. 13th, New York. New York has always represented ambition, possibility, and some of the most coveted real estate in the world. But in 2025, the old belief that high price equals safety is starting to crumble. In many parts of the state, especially around the city, home prices have climbed so far beyond the reach of the middle class that even maintaining ownership has become a heavy burden. The market is now splitting into two very different realities. On one end, the luxury sector is holding its value, barely flinching despite economic pressure. But on the other end, where regular homeowners live, properties are slowing, softening, or slipping in price. That divide is pushing middle-aged buyers and retirees into an increasingly uncomfortable position. They're facing sky-high purchase costs, expensive day-to-day living, and the real possibility that their asset may lose value in the next correction. And it's not just the mortgage weighing people down. Property taxes, insurance, healthcare costs, and the general expense of living in a major metropolitan area all chip away at the savings many households spent decades building. When your income stops being flexible, but your cost of living keeps climbing, the dream of New York starts to feel less like opportunity and more like a dangerous bet. New York still offers incredible chances for those with truly strong financial footing. But if your budget isn't solid, relying on the prestige of a golden location can pull you into a crisis far faster than you expect. 14th, Ohio. Ohio is often viewed as a straightforward, comfortable place to live. Affordable homes, reasonable costs, and a generally steady environment. But affordable doesn't automatically mean safe, and the state's housing market is beginning to reveal some important red flags. Home prices in Ohio are still within reach for most middle-income families and retirees, which is exactly why so many people choose it as their long-term landing spot. But recently, the market has started to cool. There are more properties being listed, fewer buyers stepping forward, and a noticeable uptick in homes selling for less than their asking price. When liquidity weakens like this, it becomes much harder for homeowners to cash out or move when life circumstances change. For older adults, that timing risk carries real consequences. Buying at the wrong moment, or ending up stuck with a home that no longer suits your needs, can create financial strain during a phase of life where flexibility is limited. Even though daily expenses, taxes, and maintenance costs are lower than in big coastal states, they can still accumulate over time and put pressure on retirees living on fixed incomes. And if too many newcomers arrive, while essential services, healthcare access, employment opportunities, and local infrastructure fail to keep up, the overall quality of life can decline faster than expected. Ohio can be a great place to live, but only if you understand what enough truly means for your finances and your lifestyle. Buying here because it's cheap is the easy part. Staying comfortable for the long haul is what requires careful planning and honest evaluation. 15th, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania isn't making dramatic headlines like California, and it's not experiencing the sharp swings seen in Texas. But that's exactly what makes its situation so concerning. The state is slipping into a housing crisis slowly, quietly, and very steadily. Home prices in many areas aren't rising, yet the cost of ownership keeps inching upward. Meanwhile, buyer activity is fading. In cities such as Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, the market is clearly stagnating. Homes are sitting longer, buyers are becoming increasingly selective, and prices are softening, but not enough to reignite interest or create any meaningful momentum. At the same time, property taxes and insurance premiums aren't offering any relief. They continue to chip away at the budgets of retirees and middle-income families month after month. Many homeowners who bought during the upbeat, optimistic phase of the market are now staring down a tough dilemma. If they sell, they may take a loss. If they hold on, they face constant financial pressure. Some parts of the state are even beginning to show long-term vacancies, an early warning sign that neighborhood decline may already be underway. Pennsylvania doesn't collapse overnight, and that slow erosion is exactly why people underestimate the risk. You may feel like you're living in an ordinary, stable home, but it's worth asking yourself whether your financial strength is quietly draining away. 15 states, 15 warnings. Across the board, prices are softening, expenses are climbing, and the people who believed they were safe are often the ones getting caught off guard. If you own a home today, take a moment to reflect. Is your home still an asset? Or has it quietly become a burden? Which state are you in? Are you seeing any of these trends around you? Share your experience. Your story might help someone avoid an expensive mistake. And if this message gave you insight, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with the people you care about. A home should be a foundation for your future, not the place where your dreams quietly disappear.